Hello, everybody. Thank you again for all of your attention today. We're going to have two more speakers today to wrap up our first ALZ talk. Before we go into that, just wanted to, again, personally thank all of you for coming out today and participating in this kind of a new experiment that we are trying to do in order to get this very valuable information out there to not only our community and our state, but also our nation, in order to help those people who are still trying to find their way through this particular journey and give them something to hold on to and some insight and guidance as to where they can go from that. So I just want to say thank you very much on that situation. You know, the human condition is one that is comprised of many different components. We have the intellectual side, the side that makes us who we are and we think and interact in our world. We have the personal side, those relationships that we have with individuals. We have that emotional side that's a component of that as well. And we also have a side of us that sometimes we tend to overlook, and we don't feed it enough. We don't give it enough attention. So where we're going to go today at this moment is we're going to explore perhaps more of that spiritual side of things. And I have a very, very, very good friend of mine coming out to speak with you next. Victoria, she's going to blow your mind. At least I think she is. She's absolutely fabulous. One of the nicest people I know in the whole world. Again, her biograph is in your program guide. I encourage you to read through it. It's very extensive. She's an author, she's a speaker, and most of all, she is just an amazing person. So if I could ask you to give a very, very warm and amazing ALZ talk, welcome to Victoria.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Good afternoon. I'm so glad to be here, and I'm very grateful to have this time to share with you. And I have three things that I would like to share with you for your consideration in your daily life, but also in this part of your journey. This is a very special journey that you're sharing with your loved one. So here's some watchwords, three watchwords for you to bear in mind during this whole time. One is honoring. Another is communicating. And the third is oneness. Oneness. We're told in the good book, that was my Toviya from Fiddler on the Roof imitation. We're told in the good book that we are to rise before the aged, and we're to give honor to the elderly. There's this 2,000-year-old book that's all of these discussions that we have had on these types of verses. And in the Talmud it says that we've learned that we're supposed to rise and honor that person even if they no longer remember their name. Isn't it comforting in a little way to know that 2,000 years ago, people were already talking about how do we interact? How do we communicate with people who no longer even remember their own name? It's part of the human condition. We learned that we do that, we recognize that even if they're not able to access and to pull forward and express their thoughts, they are still the whole person that they have always been. That everything they've learned in their education in the world, through formal education, but mostly we learned through the experiences of our journey in our life, all of that is still there, even if they're not able to access it and express it through the body. It's all there. And we honor that. I was able to understand this a little better and understand this experience when I was working with Alzheimer's patients. And in working with them, they began to show me and teach me what some of the principles are that I was learning from ancient teachings. And I would like you to consider then the idea, the concept that there are layers of consciousness. Layers of consciousness, our inner being, our soul, if you would. And there are layers of that consciousness, some of them in the internal, we'll use that word, outside of time and space, and some layers of that soul that are integrated, cellular, integrated in our body. And there is a layer of consciousness then in our body, which is pure animation. It gives my body the ability to move. It keeps my heart pumping. It keeps me breathing. It keeps me swallowing. All the things that I think of consciously and unconsciously, that pure animation level. Then there's another layer of soul that is a flow between you and me. I meet you. Maybe I remember your face. Maybe I have face recognition. Maybe I don't. Maybe I remember your name. Most likely I don't, unfortunately. But that's the flow of soul, spirit, between us. What goes on between you and me. And then there's the layer of soul, a layer of consciousness, which is giving me my flavor. It gives me my uniqueness. You meet someone, oh, what a sweet person. We call it a Yiddish neshama. What a sweet person, what a sweet soul. Or you meet somebody who's a little bit of a grumpy person. It's not just our character. It's not just our personality. It's our flavor. That's another layer of soul, consciousness. My Alzheimer's and dementia patients began to teach me, and then also people who were in transitioning out of this lifetime, began to teach me that sometimes it doesn't all go at one time. Sometimes a layer at a time goes. So what does that look like? Well, what that looks like is when that layer that gives me my uniqueness and my flavor has gone outside of time and space and left the body, then that person seems like not the same person you have known all the years you've been with them. I would often have someone, the caregiver, the loved one, say to me, I wish you knew my mom, my dad. Wish you knew my wife. Wish you knew my husband before. This isn't him. It is him. It's still the whole person. It is him. He's not expressing all of himself, but part is out there, part is here. It's still her or him. And then what happens when that part that flows between myself and you, what happens when that transcends? What happens when that is no longer there? What happens is they may not remember who you are. They may not remember your relationship. They may not remember your name. And that can be a very hurtful thing until we remember, but wait, there's a whole part of them that does. It's just they're not able to express it out. That part of them has transcended. Have you ever had the experience where you met someone and you knew you didn't know this person, at least in this lifetime, you didn't know this person yet, and yet somehow you feel a kindred spirit, you feel a friendship. We call that soul recognition. And I've seen this with some of my Alzheimer's patients. They don't know your name, they don't know who you are, but they get this beaming smile on their face when you come into their presence. And it's like their head may not know, their brain may not tell them, but their soul knows you. And that's a very, very wonderful moment you share together. Once that is transcended out, then you have that pure animation that we were talking about, that basic level. And that pure animation stays there and allows them to live out their treasured number of days. The treasured number of days that they have been given to live out a lifetime. This layer remains. And during that treasured number of days, while they're fulfilling their life, you are a very, very important part of that journey for them. For you enable that to happen. So how do we communicate then with them through this journey? Well, I offered you that we simply communicate with the whole person, so that we begin to speak to them not only with the words of our lips, but the perceptions of our hearts. And we begin to hear from them from our perception of heart, which is not necessarily the spoken word. We might say, you're asking me to read his mind. No, I'm not asking you to read his mind. I'm asking you to read your heart, your perception. It's as close as your very breath. When you do that many, many times. Have you ever had a pet? Have you ever just looked and, the dog needs to go out? Well, the dog didn't really bring you a leash. It didn't run to the door and say, but something inside of you perceived that the dog needed to go out. And that perception, the seat of perception, is in the heart. And so that's what you begin using to communicate, so that you're not only speaking to their physical being, but you're also talking to that part of them which is outside of time and space, somewhere in the other worlds. A great way to communicate also, and by the way, let me just backtrack a moment. That's how sometimes you know they're hungry when they say, I'm not really hungry. And then you give them a banana and they scarf it down like there was no tomorrow, and they really eat because something in your perception said they're hungry. Another way, a great way to communicate is through song, singing. You do not have to know how to sing well. You do not have to be able to carry a tune in a basket, but just to softly begin singing with them and watch their reaction. I have been amazed when I've been with Alzheimer patients who do not know who they are, who you are, where you are, but it doesn't really matter. And then I'll start singing a song, and all of a sudden they're singing it with me, every single word. Have you seen the picture, The Notebook? Who hasn't seen the wonderful movie, The Notebook? If you haven't seen it, please do yourself a favor, get The Notebook and see the movie. In that movie, she's playing the piano. She has no recall of her own children, who they are. She's playing the piano, and suddenly she's remembering it from her soul, from her heart, from her deeper self, not her brain. And she's playing, and she's not reading the music. It's not just reading it. And if you notice, when we're not reading the music, I call it playing it by heart. I say play it by heart to life. Play life by heart. You look at the heart, and she's playing. Later on, she's slow dancing with her husband in the music. All of a sudden, she's very there. She's very present, just for a few moments. And then it's gone. Why? Because music takes us somewhere. That's why we have so many different radio stations. Have you ever put one on? Oh, no, I don't want to hear that song. You go to something else because it's taking you somewhere and you don't want to go there. So you pull up another song. Music takes you somewhere. Where does it take you? Outside of time and space, so that in that moment that you're singing together, guess what? You're meeting in the in-between. You're meeting with them in the in-between. And afterwards, if that kind of fades a little bit, and it's like, oh my goodness, now they're gone again, it's okay, because you know they are still there. The whole person. What's here in front of you, what's out there. And you have had a very, very magical moment of experiencing their whole being, even when it's not being expressed through the body. The whole person is still there, and that brings us to the oneness. As a caregiver, you may have some mixed emotions, and some people don't even want to admit it to themselves, let alone others. You may have some mixed emotions. You wonder, how long Can I do this? How long is this going to go on? Can I do this? And at the very same time, you hold the thoughts and the feelings. You do not want to see it come to the inevitable. You have those feelings. With my heart and with the gentlest, kindest words I can say, there will be an end. There will be. There will be an end. There will be a time when all of the layers of that soul disengage on a cellular level from that body and transcend this lifetime. And at that time, you will continue to communicate with them the way you have already learned to communicate, through the perceptions. As you go through bereavement and you go through the healing of it, and you transfer all of that love and all that emotion from the physical to the spirit being, you've already been talking to them in your perceptions, in your heart. And that love is the bridge that crosses and connects you heart to heart with them in the higher worlds. And there are ways that they will let you know, because you know. It doesn't have to convince anybody else. You know because you know. That's them. That's them letting you know, I see, I feel, I know. And you're able to communicate with them even more strongly then than you were when they were here. Right now, with the physical here, these are treasured, precious days. Beginning to communicate with them now on this way of the whole person will continue to heal you and help you heal in the days to come, so that you're able to function in life and yet have that golden gossamer thread of their presence with you in a way that enhances your life rather than diminishes your life. And so now, that brings us to the oneness. The oneness. You've already learned how to speak to them soul to soul. You've met the challenges and the difficulties of life. All of that drops away with the physical. And what you have left is the love, the caring, the respect, and the honoring that you have built throughout this journey. And that continues on with you for the rest of your life. Your love is the power plant that will enable you to do this. And your love is also the power plant within you. It's free. All you have to do is tap into it. That will continue to hold the oneness, the unity of your life and their life in the wholeness of being. And so we look at honoring the whole person, communicating with the whole person. And your spiritual fulfillment then will prevail in your oneness. Thank you so much.